Hey, and welcome back. In today's video, I want to tackle building a few snare drums with these shells that I picked up at the Chicago Drum Show earlier this year. Now, just to give you a brief backstory about these shells, I go to the Chicago Drum Show every year. I usually film a walkthrough for it, and one of my favorite parts about the drum show, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, is the emphasis on independent drum builders, boutique drum builders, cymbalsmiths, and that sort of thing. Of course, in many years, I'll pick up a vintage drum, whether it be a project to do on this channel or just for my own collection. But one of the companies that I've seen there for the last at least 4 years is Erie Drum Shells. He has a unique way of making steam bent drum shells, which is often associated with solid drum shells, 1-ply. But his are a little unique, they're 2-ply. And so I've walked by his booth a number of times over the years. A couple years ago, one of my buddies that I go with picked up one of his snare drums that was pre-built out. And this year, he had a bunch of shells to sell. And we went on Sunday, which is the end of the show. And so when I got there at the start of the day, I think they were priced at $100 a piece. And, getting to the end of Sunday and the weekend, he lowered the price to $75 for things that were still left over. And I went over and talked to him because I was planning to pick up just one shell. And he had told me that if I would buy 2 shells, he would do 2 for $60 each. And then he said at the very end of the day that if I bought 2 shells at that price, he'd throw in a third for free. So I ended up with all 3 of these shells for $120 or $40 a piece. Now I decided to pick out 3 different ones so that as I put these drums together, they might be more appealing to keep in my collection. And I just want to briefly walk through each one with you. So let's start with this one, the smallest. This is a 13x5 cherry shell. They've all got round over edges here already cut in and they're already sanded. The next one is what I would call a Neapolitan drum. The outer ply here has 3 different species. So we have walnut, what I assume to be maple, and then maybe oak over here. I honestly didn't even ask him. And this one is 14 by 6.5. The final one here is 14 by 7. So this would be the deepest drum I've ever owned in terms of a traditional drum set snare. And this is the Tree of Heaven. That's the wood species. I thought it was ash. It looks a lot like ash from the grain pattern here. When I looked up what Tree of Heaven is, it actually is an invasive species. It's native to China and Taiwan, but it also does grow in the US. The characteristic of it is that it grows really fast, and it doesn't live that long. They said usually a maximum of 50 years, as other trees typically can live to 100 years or more. So I think these will be fun to build out. I wanted to do it all in one video because a lot of the work has already been done for me. They're sanded smooth, they have bearing edges cut, no snare beds, but I think I should be able to take these up to the garage and just start by doing finish work. And honestly, I don't even think I want to do anything like staining these because the wood is the star of the show, and all of these have such unique makeup that I want to highlight that with the finished look. I really thought this was going to be the project where I finally started experimenting with a new finish like Danish or tung oil, but when it comes down to it, I really like using polyurethane because it's durable, cheap, and these aerosol cans make application a lot easier for somebody like me. While I waited for the first coat of poly to dry, I went back downstairs to find hoops, throw-offs, butt plates, and all the lugs I would need to build out these drums, and luckily, I had plenty to choose from. One of my favorite aspects about spray polyurethane is how quick it dries, meaning that just over a single day, I can get anywhere from 8 to 10 coats done. These coats go on so thin that you really don't need to sand much in between, but I did stop between the 4th and 5th coat to go ahead and smooth out any of that grainy texture built up on the finish, and then did about 3 more coats before calling it a day. The next morning, I was able to bring these shells back downstairs to begin the process of layout for all of the hardware going on these shells. Each of these drums will be getting an 8-hole pattern, which means the process is very repetitive, but since accurate measurements are crucial in this step, I try to make sure that I'm not going through the motions and stay very aware, double and triple checking everything as I'm going along. In addition to breaking up the shell into 8 equal segments for the lugs, I'm also adding 2 more markings on each shell for the throw-off and butt plate. This layout mat that I got from Drum Supply House makes this work much easier, along with a combination square to transfer all of my markings across the entirety of the shell in an assembly line workflow. All 3 of these drums are getting different lugs that have unique measurements, so at this point the repetitive process is over and it's really working one by one. The 13-inch cherry drum is getting Gretsch-style double-ended lugs from Drum Factory Direct, and these are lugs that I've used many times over the years, and they're some of the most affordable on the site. Next up was the 14-inch Neapolitan shell, and this one was getting a very similar lug, again from Drum Factory Direct, but modeled after the classic Slingerland beavertail lugs. For the final drum, I wanted to go with split lugs on either end, given its 7-inch depth. And since all of these shells are steam bent, I thought it would be fitting to model at least one of them after what I consider to be the most iconic steam bent drum of all time, the Slingerland Radio King. Unfortunately, with the split lugs, it meant that I needed to drill twice as many holes, so this process took a lot longer than the other 2. After finishing up with the lugs, it was time to move on to the throw-offs, which are a lot easier to install. I've learned my lesson about laying them out too close to the bearing edge, but other than that, I don't think it's really essential to have it in any specific place, other than evenly split between 2 lugs. The butt plates tend to take a little bit more work because you still need to have it split right down 2 lugs, but the layout for it is much more horizontal than vertical. Again, it's important here to make sure that it's mounted high enough that the resonant head can't bottom out against it as it's stretched over the shell. Both the Cherry and Tree of Heaven shells got a pretty generic throw-off and butt plate, while the Neapolitan one got some DW parts that I ripped off a snare I picked up earlier this summer. While I was installing the butt plates on each shell, I also added air vent grommets directly above them because I think it's a unique place to have it, and it looks clean in my opinion. So with all the hardware now installed, it was time to finally cut the snare beds. I saved it till the end because honestly, I hate doing these. I don't have a jig or anything repeatable, so I do it by hand with a rasp, file, and sanding. For anyone who's been watching the channel for some time, you've heard me mention this all before, but I do think that over the last 4 or 5 snare builds, I'm getting more confidence in this step. Alright, so the drums are finished and it's time to throw some heads on these and finally hear how they sound. Before I get to adding heads, I do just want to clean these off a little bit because as I was filing those snare beds, I got a little bit of dust particles in the throw-off and butt plate, and so let that be a lesson to you to either remove those parts from the shell or cut your snare beds first. I hate cutting snare beds, so I chose to save it for last, and that's the price I have to pay. I think I can clean these up with some compressed air though. Yeah, I mean, that one's already good to go. Now, before I get to throwing heads on here, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Evans Drumheads. If you've been following the channel lately, you're no stranger to Evans. They've been super supportive of the work I'm doing, and honestly, the whole reason I got into using Evans was, 1, they make a great product and you can find them at every music store, but 2, their Player Circle program is super rewarding in the fact that every product you buy, you can redeem online with your account and add points towards future orders. Not just like t-shirts and keychains, but like actual drum heads, sticks, or anything from the Diodario catalog. I've been using it a lot for projects just because every time I buy a head, it counts towards something down the road. But now that they're supporting the channel, it's been really great. And even the stuff they've been sending me has Player Circle points. They've sent me 3 of their snare kits to put these together, and what I really like about these is they come with everything you need to refresh your snare. You've got a set of wires, batter head, a resonant head, you've got a drum key, you've got storage for your tension rods to use this box as like a workstation, some metal polish, lug lubricant, a polishing cloth, and even one of their EQ pots, like the little dampening attachment. And then lastly, you get a pair of drumsticks, which is super thoughtful. The box has these nice instructions on it too, to kind of show you the process of how you should do this, because Even though I don't need something like that, I think there's a lot of people out here who would buy this who don't have much experience with changing their heads. So they've sent me 3 of these for each of the drums. We've got a 14-inch HG Dry kit, a 14-inch EC Reverse Dot, which is a head that I've not tried. I think they call it like half coating, so it's not as textured as a normal coated head. Some pre-muffling built in here as well. I'd be excited to try this. And then a 13-inch UV1 kit. Obviously that one's going for this shell. They also offer this kit with a calf tone, and all of these kits have specific snare wires included. So I believe the calf tone kit comes with orchestral wires, and then some of the other kits either come with like 20-strand blasters or other pure sound wires. So it's time to get these put together, and in order to save you some time, I think I'm just going to montage this all together. Now, I don't want to go through each of these drums and show you its full tuning range, because the way I look at snare drums now that I have like more than 20 of them is, what can it really excel at and be called on for a specific application in my studio? I think this 13-inch cherry wood drum is probably meant to sit in a higher tuning, so that's where I have it right now, and let's go ahead and take a listen. Yeah, I think it sounds really good at that tuning. I do think that the hoops are playing a big factor here. These are very thin. I'm pretty sure I bought these off Amazon for like 20 bucks for the pair. They're definitely some sort of like Chinese import hoop. And usually the thinnest hoops you'll see is like 1.6 millimeter. I think these might even be thinner. Honestly, the quality on them is not excellent either, because as I was assembling the drum, I can feel some like sharper edges that weren't totally sanded down. So I may have a little bit of regrets of not just spending like 20 bucks per hoop and buying nice Gibraltar 2.3. But I do think that would cause this drum to be choked up a little more with the weight of the hoops. Let's go ahead and throw some muffling on there just to see how that changes things. And since they came in the snare kits, I'm just going to use one of these Evans EQ pods. I actually like that a lot. I really like it when it's open, but I also like it a little more tight and controlled. It reminds me a lot of like Dave Garibaldi and that, San Francisco Bay Area funk sound where it's just like higher pitched, really tight and articulate. And this drum is pretty expressive. As I was doing the ghost note stuff, the buzzes, and even the snare roll, it's like I didn't struggle to do any of that, which I do experience on other drums. So I'd say this one is a win. I don't know if I see it being my go-to snare drum for anything, but I think it turned out pretty good, and the Evans UV1 head is certainly like a nice starting place. Next up, we've got the Neapolitan drum, and this one has the EC reverse dot. I've never tried this head. I'm very skeptical about heads like this, but what I will say is it's been a few days since I finished building them, and I've kind of been toying around with them here and there. This one, the DW throw off, one of the rivets that was like holding on this lever that allows the snare mechanism to work, broke off. And then as I was trying to fix it, the other one broke off. So I learned a new skill and bought myself a little rivet gun and way too many sized rivets to find the right one for this. But I was able to fix it and now it works pretty well again. So new skill learned, and this butt plate and snare throw was salvaged from being obsolete. Let's go ahead and try it with the EQ pod and see how that affects the sound. And then I might do this one a little bit cranked up just to get a better sense of how this EC reverse dot reacts in a few different tunings. So that's actually pretty usable. What I'm noticing with this head is if I really lay into it and play with some force, it gives me a nice return. If I play lightly, it just doesn't activate enough of the head to get a good quality sound, in my opinion. So maybe if I were playing louder rock and roll, metal, more aggressive styles, I would really like something like this, but I play a lot of lighter nuanced styles and it's just not something I'm totally used to. I really didn't think I was going to like this drum as much as I do. I'm mostly talking about visually. Sound-wise, it does what it does. I think it has a place it could fit in among the other snare drums I own. But I've never been a fan of this like tri-band look with different wood species. I really like it. I think these beaver tail lugs are really classy and give it kind of a classic aesthetic. This is a beautiful drum. I'm really surprised by how much I enjoy how this one turned out. Now for the final snare, the Tree of Heaven, or my fake Radio King drum. This is the deepest of the three. It's 7 inches. It has the HD dry head, which has like a tiny muffling ring around the exterior, and then these little vent holes, which is just supposed to dry up the sound a little bit, get rid of some of the overtones. I see this one being kind of a lower tuned drum, getting a lot of depth to it with how much air can move inside this shell. So it'll be interesting to see how it sounds. So let's go ahead and take a listen. I think the HD Dry might be my new secret weapon for getting a lower, more controlled snare sound. I will say you're giving up a little bit of that nuance and feel with it. When I was playing the snare drum roll, I was kind of struggling to get a nice clean buzz, but I think you're going to experience that no matter what. If you throw the big fat snare drum on top of it, you're going to have the same sort of problem. So it's just something you have to adapt with your technique in order to do that lower tuned snare drum sound. From the beginning, I always thought this would be my favorite snare drum because it's super deep and the whole Radio King idea. And then when it comes to the shell material, the Tree of Heaven, I feel like it just sounds like so mystical and exotic that it's something I want to have in my collection as like a conversation piece. This one is certainly my favorite. I'm definitely hanging on to this because It's so different from any of the other snare drums I own, and I'm just too poor to afford an authentic Radio King. Unless Slingerland would want to send me one for the channel, that would be cool. But when it comes to these other two drums, I'll hang on to these for a little bit, but I've been thinking lately about making a video of some of the project drums and other drums I've restored and selling them to some viewers of the channel if you guys are interested. They won't be bargain basement prices because I think the craftsmanship on here is pretty good, but I'm also not going to charge $1,000 or something crazy like that because I'm self-aware to know that I'm not a professional drum builder. So if anybody out there would potentially be interested in something like these, I don't know, maybe leave a comment down below and stay tuned for a video where I show some of the drums I'd be willing to move on from. I'd love to hear what you guys think about all of these drums and this project as a whole, so let me know down in the comments. If you're interested in building one of these for yourself, you can definitely check out Erie Drums. They're not a sponsor of this video, but again, he gave me a killer deal on all these shells at the drum show, so I'm super grateful to him. And of course, you can visit Drum Factory Direct to find the parts to put all these together for yourself. So I'd encourage you to do it, and thanks for watching my video, making it to the end, and I'll see you next time.